The drive core gave its first warning at the third bell, a low harmonic groan that moved through the hull of Caratha's lament the way grief moves through a congregation, slowly, felt before it is understood. I was already at the broadcast console when the second warning came, because after 41 years as keeper of the compact's ritual frequencies, I know the difference between a ship settling and a ship dying. We were 14 days out of the Southwark Passageway station, carrying 231 souls, pilgrims, mostly, and 3 acolytes barely past their naming rights. Caratha's lament was never meant for deep transit. She was a ceremonial barge, decommissioned from the compact's processional fleet and repurposed for the ancestor circuit because she was quiet and because her broadcast arrays were still tuned to the old shrine frequencies. She was the right vessel for prayer. She was not the right vessel for a drive core breach. I pulled the engineering report and read it twice, which is the number of times you read a report before you accept that it says what it says. The containment sleeve had fractured along the primary seam. We had, at the chief engineer Meretha's best estimate, somewhere between 4 and 6 hours before the breach propagated to the secondary casing. After that, the drive would not fail. It would announce itself. We had no subspace relay capability. The shrine band arrays could not carry a standard distress signal. They were tuned narrow, built for the specific resonant frequencies of the ancestor shrines, and nothing in the compact's emergency grid monitored those bands. Our nearest compact vessel was 9 hours out. Mereth did not say what she was thinking. She did not have to. I am a chaplain. I do not command. I do not engineer. What I do, what I have done for 41 years, is transmit. I powered up the main array and began the evacuation hymn. It is not a rescue signal. The compact does not use it as one. It is a ritual transmission, a formal declaration of surrender to circumstances beyond the congregation's control, beamed on the ancestor shrine's frequency as an act of spiritual completion. The shrines do not answer. They are stone and carved resonance plates and the accumulated attention of the dead. They do not dispatch ships. But we transmit to them because the act of transmission is itself the prayer, the acknowledgement that we have done what we could, and that what comes next is not ours to direct. I broadcast for 20 minutes. The hymn is long. I did not shorten it. Then I began preparing the congregation for what Mereth had not yet told them. The first hull signature appeared on our passive array at the 2-hour mark, which I note only because the timing seemed improbable enough that I assumed, for a moment, that the array was reading its own drive echo. I asked the watch officer, a young Verith named Sal, to verify. She verified. Then she looked at me with an expression I had not seen on a watch officer's face before. Not fear, not relief, but the specific blankness of someone whose instruments are telling them something their training has no category for. Keeper, she said. The hull profile does not match any compact vessel in the registry. It does not match any vessel in the registry. I moved to her station and looked at the return myself. 2 ships. Running on a heading that had no logical origin point given the geometry of the passage. They had come from the direction of the Juverin waymarker, which was a survey notch on our charts and nothing else. No station there. No traffic lane. The lead vessel was roughly frigate mass, its silhouette an arrangement of angles that the compact's recognition files could not parse. The second was smaller, blunter, with a dorsal structure that our medical taxonomy flagged, tentatively, with a query mark beside it, as a potential aid configuration. They were decelerating. Toward us. I went back to my console and pulled the broadcast log. The evacuation hymn had gone out on the ancestor shrine's frequency, compact designation ASF7, which is a narrowband ritual channel that the compact has maintained for 600 years and which nothing outside the compact has ever had reason to monitor. I checked the transmission record 4 times. There was no error. I had broadcast where I had always broadcast. The lead vessel hailed us 11 minutes after it appeared on our array. The signal came in on a frequency I did not recognize, accompanied by a translation packet that took our system 40 seconds to parse. When the words resolved, they were blunt and unhurried, as if the speaker had composed them without particular anxiety about our situation and without particular interest in their own. Keeper-class barge, this is Patrol Frigate Cassins Ford, Terran Coordinated Patrol, Southwark Passage Sector. We are responding to a structured distress pattern logged on your broadcast frequency at the 2-hour mark. We have a medical cutter with us. Please confirm your status and your casualty count. I sat with that for a moment. Then I confirmed our status and our casualty count. What followed was procedural in the way that I imagine only humans can be procedural, which is to say, completely, without apparent emotional investment in anything except the sequence of steps and the outcome of each step. The frigate's engineering team was aboard Caritha's Lament within 40 minutes of first contact. For humans in pressure suits carrying equipment our manifest had no names for. They did not ask permission to begin work. They explained what they were doing in short declarative sentences, pausing at appropriate intervals to receive confirmation that they had been understood, and then they continued. The medical cutter extended a boarding tube to our port gallery. The cutter's crew, 3 humans and a translation unit, began processing our congregation through triage. Not because anyone was injured yet. Because, one of them explained to me when I asked, establishing a baseline medical record before an emergency deteriorates is standard practice and they would prefer to have it done. I stood at the port gallery viewport and watched my congregation file through the boarding tube in the low pale light of the Juverin star, and I tried to construct a logical account of what was happening. The ancestor shrine's frequency is not a distress frequency. The evacuation hymn is not a distress signal. It has a structure, call and response, a repeating resonant phrase, a formal closure, but that structure is liturgical, not procedural. It carries no coordinate data. It carries no identification header beyond the standard compact broadcast tag. There is no reason, given any reasonable model of how species monitor frequencies in the Southern Passage, that a Terran patrol should have heard it, recognized it as distress, and come. Merith found me at the viewport sometime in the 3rd hour. The humans had by then isolated the breach and were running their repair sequence with the focused quiet of people who do this regularly. The drive is going to hold, she said. She did not say it the way someone says good news. She said it the way someone says a fact they have verified and now need to hand to another person because they cannot carry it alone. Yes, I said. Keeper. She stopped. Started again. Who did you call? I thought about how to answer that. I thought about the evacuation hymn, which is not a call for help. I thought about the 41 years I had spent transmitting on frequencies that do not answer, because the act of transmission is the prayer and not the response to it. I thought about the routing log, which I had checked 4 times, and which was perfectly clear about where the hymn had gone and what had received it. I transmitted the hymn, I said, on the shrine's frequency, as I always do. And they heard it. Apparently they monitor the band. I had asked, by then, the Cassins Ford's communications officer, a human named Veth Caraway, which I mentioned because the name had a quality I found unexpectedly steady, had told me, with no particular drama, that the Terran Patrol had been logging the compact shrine band traffic for approximately 90 years as part of a passive monitoring agreement whose original signatories were no longer serving in any capacity, and that the evacuation hymn's repeating resonant structure had triggered an automated distress flag in their relay system 2 hours ago. They had been the closest vessel. They had diverted. Merith was quiet for a moment. You transmitted to the ancestors, she said. Yes. And the humans answered. I did not respond to that immediately, because I was thinking about whether it was a question or a statement, and deciding that it was neither, that it was the specific kind of sentence a person produces when they have run out of categories and are simply marking the edge of the map. They were monitoring a frequency we did not know was monitored, I said finally. They flagged a pattern we did not intend as a signal. They were closer than anyone we would have called, and they came without being asked. I paused. I would not characterize it as theology, but I would not characterize it as coincidence either. The repairs were completed in the 4th hour. The Cassins Ford's engineering team ran a full containment verification before they left, and then ran it again, and then left a written summary of the breach cause and the repair method in a format compatible with our maintenance records. The medical cutter's crew completed their triage baseline for the full congregation, 231 records, each one clean and filed, and withdrew through the boarding tube. Caraway hailed me directly before they departed. The translation came through flat and clear. Keeper, your drive should hold for transit to the way station. We've flagged your vessel for a priority bay. Travel safe. I started to ask how they had known to monitor the shrine's frequency. I started to ask what the passive monitoring agreement said about the precise conditions under which the automated flag was triggered. I started to ask a number of things, and then I did not ask any of them, because the hail window closed with the quiet efficiency of people who have said what needed saying and have other things to attend to. Caritha's Lament reached the Southern Passageway station 12 hours later. The drive held. All 231 souls disembarked in good order. I filed the incident report that evening, which is what a chaplain does when the circumstances exceed the standard liturgical record. I wrote it carefully. I described the drive breach, the decision to transmit the evacuation hymn, and the arrival of the Terran patrol vessel and its medical cutter. I described the repairs, the triage records, and the departure. I noted the 90-year passive monitoring agreement, which I had subsequently confirmed existed, and the automated distress flag, and the fact that the Cassins Ford had been 17 minutes from the edge of its patrol boundary when the flag triggered. At the end of the report, I wrote one additional line that was not, strictly speaking, required by the incident format. The evacuation hymn was transmitted on the Ancestor Shrine's frequency as a ritual act, not a distress call. It was received and acted upon as a distress call by a species that monitors frequencies we do not expect to be monitored, because they made an agreement 90 years ago with people who are no longer alive and they have not stopped honoring it. I do not know what category to assign this. I have filed it under Received. I submitted the report and went to evening transmission, which I have not missed in 41 years. I broadcast on the Ancestor Shrine's frequency, as I always do. The shrines do not answer, but I find, lately, that I am less certain about what is listening.